just understood. If you drove lorries long enough, you were going to deal with things that today would stop a truck leaving the yard. Back then, they were normal, built in, signed off, and trusted far more than they ever should have been. Older drivers don't remember these features because they were exciting or impressive. They remember them because they learned to work around them, because they knew what could go wrong if you didn't stay alert. Because one mistake, one lapse, one unexpected moment could turn routine work into something much worse. One of the most dangerous realities was the absence of proper power steering on early heavy lorries, wrestling a fully loaded truck through tight yards, narrow streets, and awkward junctions demanded strength and constant attention. Steering wheels fought back. At low speed, especially when maneuvering, the effort required was enormous. If the wheel kicked back unexpectedly, it could tear through your hands. Fatigue built up quickly, and tired arms made mistakes more likely. When power steering became standard, it didn't just improve comfort, it reduced accidents drivers had been quietly risking every day. Braking systems were another constant source of danger. Early air brake setups were far less forgiving than modern systems. Poor modulation, delayed response, inconsistent feel. Drivers learned to anticipate stops far earlier than they should have needed to. A slight misjudgment downhill, a sudden cue, a wet road, and things escalated fast. Brake fade on long descents was real and terrifying. You learned engine braking the hard way because trusting the pedal alone could cost you control. Cab design itself introduced risks that would be unthinkable now. Thin doors, weak latches, minimal side protection. In a collision, the cab offered little more than shelter from the weather. Seatbelts were either absent or treated as optional for years. Many drivers weren't encouraged to wear them, and some trucks weren't even fitted properly. In sudden stops or impacts, drivers were thrown forward violently, hitting steering wheels, dashboards, windscreens. Injuries were accepted as bad luck rather than design failure. Visibility was another silent threat. Old lorry cabs were riddled with blind spots, thick pillars, split windscreens, poorly positioned mirrors. Junctions required constant head movement just to confirm nothing was hidden. Pedestrians, cyclists, and smaller vehicles could vanish entirely behind metal and glass. Drivers compensated by leaning, stretching, guessing. That constant vigilance was exhausting, and exhaustion makes mistakes more likely. Fuel system placement added another layer of risk. Exposed tanks, vulnerable lines, minimal protection in side impacts. A collision that should have been survivable could quickly turn catastrophic if fuel was compromised. Fires weren't unheard of. Drivers knew the danger even if it wasn't openly discussed. You smelled fuel differently back then. You respected it because you knew how little stood between a leak and disaster. Early coupling systems were another hazard drivers learned to fear. When coupling systems improved and visual indicators became standard, it eliminated a risk that drivers had been carrying on their shoulders for decades. Suspension and chassis stability also left much to be desired. High centers of gravity, narrow tracks, soft suspension combined with heavy loads. Rollovers were a real threat, especially on roundabouts and uneven roads. Drivers learned to take corners painfully slow, knowing that physics was not on their side. One sudden movement, one unexpected camber change, and the truck could go over. Modern stability systems didn't just make trucks easier to drive, they saved lives. Even basic lighting posed danger, weak headlights, poor beam patterns. Minimal rear visibility. Night driving was genuinely hazardous. You outdrove your lights constantly. Obstacles appeared late. Judging distance was guesswork. Fatigue and darkness combined into something far riskier than most people realize today. When better lighting finally arrived, drivers didn't celebrate. They wondered how they'd ever manage without it. What ties all these features together isn't recklessness on the part of drivers. It's how much responsibility was quietly placed on them to compensate for design shortcomings. Skill filled the gaps. Experience masked flaws. Near misses became stories rather than warnings. The job was still done. Freight still moved. And because it worked most of the time, the danger was normalized. But even as drivers adapted, these features were quietly marking time, waiting for enough incidents. accidents, enough injuries, enough close calls to force change. And change did come, slowly, often after damage had already been done, because there were still more hazards built into old lorries that drivers learned to live with, until the industry finally admitted they never should have existed at all. And even after drivers had learned to handle those risks almost instinctively, there were still other dangers baked into old lorries that quietly followed them mile after mile. These weren't the kind of things you talked about openly, they were the hazards you respected silently, because you knew exactly what could happen if you got them wrong. One of the biggest was the complete lack of electronic stability or rollover protection. Older lorries relied entirely on driver judgment and mechanical balance, no traction control. No stability intervention, no system stepping in when weight shifted suddenly. On wet roundabouts, uneven cambers, or badly loaded trailers, you felt the danger before you saw it. The cab would lean, the steering would go light, you backed off instantly, hoping it was enough. Rollovers weren't freak accidents, they were ever-present possibilities that drivers managed through caution alone. Tire technology added another layer of risk. Older tires offered less grip, less consistency, and far less warning before failure. Blowouts were more common and far more violent. At speed, a sudden tire failure could wrench the steering, drag the truck offline, or destabilize the trailer instantly. Drivers learned to listen for subtle changes in sound and feel, because that was often the only warning they got. Steering geometry itself could be dangerous. Worn components, play-in linkages, vague feedback. At motorway speeds, that looseness demanded constant correction. A moment's inattention could see the truck drifting, especially in crosswinds. Fatigue made it worse. Modern tight steering systems removed the constant mental load drivers had once carried without complaint. Manual gearboxes without safeguards were another hazard. Missed shifts, wrong gear on descents, no protection against selecting something disastrous at the wrong moment. Old lorries offered little protection from noise, vibration, and discomfort. Long hours behind the wheel drained concentration steadily. Without modern driver aids, every decision relied on alertness that was constantly being eroded. The truck didn't help you stay awake, it worked against you. These features didn't disappear because nostalgia faded. They disappeared because enough drivers were hurt, enough accidents happened, and enough evidence piled up that relying on experience alone wasn't acceptable anymore. And even then, change came slowly, because for every dangerous feature removed, there were always others still lurking